It's me, Chucky. My mommy is the best. Super mom, Robin, what? She helps mommy. It makes my little snack. Go get go snack. I just might go back. You wait for the straw. Brush. Get ready for it's super slippery. I'm super strong.
Welcome to Healing for the Soul podcast, sponsored by Supermom Robin Stoltman, where every week I feature different guests to empower you to become the best version of yourself through different methods you may not have heard of or thought of. If you are ever looking for a virtual assistant, I highly recommend Sphere Rocket to delegate any business-related tasks like grow your social medias, book appointments, and much more that all businesses require, boosting your sales, productivity, and much more. The link to Sphere Rocket is at the bottom of this episode, and this is season 6, episode number 54. And today I have my guest, Joe I'm going to let him take it from here, just simply because his background, he has accomplished so much. I don't know where to even begin. So,
all right. Well, Robin, thank you so much for having me. The last name is pronounced Tarantino. And since Quentin became more popular as a director, less people have had problems pronouncing it. When I was in school, I was accused of being a tortilla, a tarantula, a Tarantino, but usually we get Tarantino pretty freely now. But it is a little confusing, yes. And thank you for the kind introduction. I have a kind of an interesting background. Yes, I do. I grew up in near Youngstown, Ohio, kind of an industrial thing, just a regular family. Mom dropped out of school though in the 8th grade and took care of the farm. And Dad was worked in the steel mills there, and nothing special. But I finally convinced enough people that let me go to college, and so I did that, and that's where I met my wife Barbara. She's was a Spanish teacher for several years, and then did a lot of traveling, and then she retired a few years ago as a guidance counselor. I was a unique double major. I was chemistry and English, and never did much with the English when I was in school. When I graduated, then I went on to get a master's in analytical chemistry, and I was a chemist, became an engineer, worked in the aerospace industry for many years, and did things in operations management. Retired early, felt good Lord leading me in that direction, and so I was kind of a real technical, geeky kind of guy, and retired, and then became a cross-country bicyclist and an author, and so just quite a wide variety of things that I've done. I've always liked to keep doing something different, even though I worked at the same place for 35 years. Probably every 4 or 5 years, I did something different. I went from the lab, I went to engineering, I became an engineering supervisor, worked in one department for several years as an operations guy. They added a couple other things. I switched to our prototype foundry, which was called the barn because it wasn't a barn. It was at about 175, 80-year-old barn that they started putting old equipment in. We started doing prototype work, and then that developed into more production type stuff later on. And that's where I retired from. Traveled around the country, did some consulting after that in between bicycle trips. I have 2 boys. We have 2 boys. The oldest one is in Chicago. He has a PhD in philosophy as a professor at Loyola University. His wife runs she's a home coordinator for a group home in the L'Arche community, which is a worldwide organization through the Catholic Church that helps physically mentally handicapped adults. She's a home coordinator there. My son did some work in that. He actually went to Australia for a year and did that. And then when he came back and moved to Chicago, that's where he connected with his wife, Molly. Our younger son, Marco, is he's almost a full stack programmer, which means he does mostly back end, but he knows enough about the front end part of web design that he can get through some things like that. And he lives about half hour away from us. We're near Canton, Ohio, just a few miles from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And that is probably a longer answer to tell us about yourself than what you wanted, but I'll let you ask any more questions you want to ask.
well, no, that's all right. Because like I said, you've accomplished so much that I'm like, that's why when I was reading your bio, even I'm like, okay, this is a lot. It's better off letting you explain like everything that you've like where your background is, everything that's a lot of different things, which is awesome that God has allowed you to do so many different things.
Well, I'll tell you, when I reflect back on my life, uh, I would say I was a very much an underachiever when I was in middle school and high school, and even starting college. The only classes I really studied for was if I thought I wasn't going to get a B. So the classes I studied the hardest for were the ones I got a C in. If I got an A, it was just because it came easy, and that doesn't mean that I applied myself at all. And then when I got to college, I found out it was a little bit different. And first semester was a real struggle and dug myself a hole, but I eventually buckled down and met my wife there a couple years later. And she inspired me with her work habits and some other things. And I finally graduated with honors and went on to get the master's in analytical chemistry. And then 20 years later, I got an MBA. And then I realized I was getting too old to get any more degrees. It wasn't going to do me any good. And so I thought, well, I better, if I wanted to ride my bike across the country, I better get started before I get much older. And I really just felt there was some just kind of a whole confluence of things that came about at a certain time. And I really felt strongly that I needed to retire. And I kind of prayed about it a lot and thought about it, talked to my wife, talked to our financial people. I said, you can do it. And I kind of hung on to that decision for a few months until I felt like I was not just doing something to get away from something, but it was something that I felt I was led to do. And the more I thought about, prayed about it, felt like, God telling me that, you know what, this is what I want you to do. If you don't retire, then you are not doing what I want you to do. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And even after now, where I've ridden through all 50 states, I've got a couple books published. I got another one about halfway done, and another one that might be done. But this is not where I thought I would end up being. I did not think I would be on doing podcasts. I did not think I would be sharing my faith publicly in this manner. But that's where it's taken me. So anyway, there's a follow up to your last question.
I was gonna say, because I'm just thinking about how we've got our plans and then there's God's plans. And I'm like, a good friend of mine told me that if you ever want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. How does
I've
that
heard
work
that
for
so many
you?
times. Yeah, that I don't know that he's laughed at me, but he has certainly nudged me. And the first book I wrote, it wasn't at all what I wanted to do. In fact, I always thought I wanted to write a science fiction book. And then as I started getting, more and more bicycling, I thought, this would be cool. I think I'm going to be able to finish this trip across the country. I couldn't take enough time off to do it all at once. And so I broke it up. Whenever I had a little bit of vacation time, I took it. And then I said, you know what? This is not really fair to the family, for me to use my vacation to go on these solo bike trips. And and it was weird when I was going back and doing some of the editing on the most recent book I published, The Pale Pink Roads. I said, I must have missed something in here. And all of a sudden I said, I went like 17 years without doing an overnight bike trip. And it's like all of a sudden I went from being in my mid 30s to really thinking that I'm going to be retiring in a few years. And it just struck me how fast, time went past. Well, I never felt led to not bicycle. But after I finally got things worked out and I was able to retire, um, and I spent some time with my dad. He was late 90s and he was struggling. And within probably 2 weeks after I formally retired, he had a series of little mini strokes, and he required a lot more care than my brother, who was right nearby him, could give. And so it was about a year where I was basically, that was my job, uh, about almost 40 hours a week, drive 2 hour round trip, take care of him, and didn't do much bicycling. And then when I finally got around to doing this, I thought, you know what, I'm going to write a trip. The book is going to be about all these bicycle trips. And I had already mentally formed an outline. I started writing it down. And then without, providing a spoiler alert, um, I don't know if God was laughing at me, but he said, you know what, I got you through all these trips. You made it safely across the country. And that's what you prayed. And that's what you asked me to do for you. Now I'm asking you to do something for me. I want you to write a book and I want you to make it about your faith. I want you to share your faith. And I was like, oh man, I can't do this. So this is not me. And got to, you know what, you asked me, I just got you through 1,600 miles, 1,700 miles, you know, through the Rocky Mountains, a desert, a major earthquake, you know, record heat, all this crazy stuff that I went through on this trip. And now all I'm asking you to do is write a book and share your faith, you know, and if you don't have that kind of confidence, I don't know what, I just felt like I would be very disobedient if I did not follow through with writing the book in the way it did. So the first book I wrote, it's called Bicycling Across America's Northwest, and the subtitle is When Fear and Faith Collide, because that's what it was. I described some of those emotions as I got ready to start, and it was a collision. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I at the end of the book, you know, I got through it and I wrote the book, and then that was back in 2019 when that first book was published, and then since then I've been kind of on a mission from God. I don't know that he said you're going to ride through all 50 states, or I said I was going to do it, but he allowed me to do it. And when we got done, that's where Pale Pink Roads was supposed to be a book about, you know, the all 50 states. Well, I only got through 14 of them. So that's what the next book is going to be, a little more comprehensive, and I'm hoping to get all 36 remaining states into that book. We're about halfway through, and I'm still on my word count, so it doesn't get too long. So yeah, I don't know that God laughed at me, but he certainly nudged me. He said, "This is what I've done for you. I want you to do this for me now."
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, like, for when you call it like the nudges, because sometimes I feel like God gives enough signs that he's like, okay, he's like, that's what I'm looking at, like the nudges. Like for me, it's like more that, like, that push. It's like a gentle push of, okay, this is what I want you to do. And then it's like, if it's supposed to be, then it works. And it's not what I think, like what you said. It's like, I think one thing, and then God's like, here's all this. And I was like, this is not what I was planning on.
You know, there's what I have discovered, and I'm sure a lot of other people have felt it too. There's a fine line between understanding and realizing that a door has been closed, or God wants you to persevere and get through it. And you know, you just really, what I have found is my prayer time really is fundamental toward helping me make that decision. If I just think, yeah, you know, I just got to plow through this thing, and I really don't take it to the Lord in prayer, I'm probably going to make the wrong decision, or you know, just not. It's easy to just push through. I mean, I've been on bike trips where you're like, and there's days it's like, man, I got to get to my destination, but this is just not happening. And there's been a few times where my wife's been around. I said, we're just going to cut our losses today. Come pick me up, you know, and we'll figure out what we're going to do later on, because I just can't get through it today. Either just the weather just was too bad, or physically I wasn't prepared for that day. So it is a difficult thing. And what I have found to help me through it is, and I struggle because when I was working, I mean, a lot of times I ran a lot of marathons too, ran 25 marathons. And when I was working is when I did most of them. And I, you know, covered an operation. It was 3 shifts. And I like to be there at, you know, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning to make sure I connected with the people that were working overnight, do all the meetings and all the stuff during the days, and then connect with the people in the afternoon. So, I mean, I was putting in long days. And when I got home, I was exhausted. I didn't feel like training for a marathon. So I would get up 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I would run. And, you know, that was pushing through it. And, you know, I suffered some physical consequences because of that, but I got through that. And anyway, it just is, there comes a point in time when you say, you know what, this is just not a door that is open to me, and I got to close it. And when you talk about the little nudging, I hadn't run a marathon for, I'm going to say, since 2019. I actually ran Boston Marathon. I finally qualified. I didn't get any faster. I just got older, and I moved into an age group that I was able to qualify for it. And I just took some time off, and the pandemic hit. A lot of races were canceled, and I just mentally, I never felt like doing it until last year. I finally felt like I could physically do it. I got up, my miles back up, and I ran the Myrtle Beach Marathon, March 1st, and took a day off. And then I drove down to St. Augustine, where I had ridden my bike to before. And then I said, I'm going to ride from St. Augustine down to Key West. And it was 500 miles almost exactly. And I ended up making it. But the very first day of that trip, I just felt like I was struggling. And it was one of those nudges that God said, you know what? You can't always jump out of an airplane and expect me to give you a safe landing, especially if you don't carry a parachute. And it's like, you just can't, you're getting older. You can't take off on all these trips and it just, pray for health and safety and then expect that I'm going to take care. I might have another season planned for you. And I won't go through all the details, but I got some tests coming up for some tests that I didn't pass with flying colors, and so we're waiting to hear how these tests work out. And I just pray the Lord, hey, just help me to accept whatever season you have. If it doesn't include as much biking and running and the things that I've been used to doing, then so be it. But yeah, and it was just, I think, even back in March that God kind of planted that seed that, at some point in time, I'm going to have another season of life for you that, you are going to turn 70 next year. And, all these things that I've enabled you to do through your 50s and 60s, it just may not continue the way you think it's supposed to continue.
Well, that's nice. That's nice though. How I'm just like thinking that's nice how God has helped you so much in that. Because I know like sometimes I forget my ways on like not my ways because I know his ways are better. I'm just saying. But it's like sometimes I think we forget that we just gotta sometimes just listen to what God wants us to do versus what we think we want to do. I know like when he said about for the doors closing, I'm like, I've wondered like how many doors that are closed right now in my life, but I'm still trying to open them. I'm still trying to go through them. So I'm almost wondering like if that's where the struggle is at. Is because I'm still trying to open up the door and God's like, this door's already been closed. There's a reason why certain things aren't working out for you. It's because you've been doing it. It's not anymore.
And when you mentioned about, uh, and I talked to you a little bit about praying, where I was kind of getting to with getting up early and going into work. I mean, I just didn't have a lot of time, you know, for devotions in the morning. And so sometimes I'd, read the Bible in the afternoon or I had about a 20-25 minute drive to work and I would, say some prayers then on the way to work instead of, getting sidetracked with music and stuff. But now that I'm retired, I just well, let me back up 1 second. And so it was to me, getting up in the morning is when I'm mentally alert and I want to attack, the hard stuff. And so I just wanted to get up and I wanted to start doing my editing, doing my writing, get all that stuff done. And I really felt checked that God said, you know what? I want you to spend time in the word. I want you to spend time studying, praying, and then get your mind clear, get your mind right. And then you can sit down at your computer and start tapping at the keyboard or do what you think you need to do after that. And since then, I just have felt much more clarity in which direction I'm going. And that's why I said I cannot. I mean, if I physically am not going to be able to do some of the things, or I have to take a time out for 6 months or a year to recover from some surgery or whatever, so be it. I cannot complain to God. Said, why did you do this to me? I mean, when I think about all the health He has given me and the things that I've been able to see, there is no way I could complain about it. I mean, this is just it is what it is, and none of us are going to live forever. And so I'm willing to accept whatever season of life He has for me.
I like that because I'm thinking about like right now, God has wanted me to slow down. And I'm like, God, do you not see that I've got this, this, and this? And he's like, yeah, I see. He's like, so I want you to still slow down. And I'm
It
like,
is.
after the eighth baby, it only took 8 C-sections
Oh,
before now. I'm like, God's like, I need you just to slow down. And I'm like, I'm been trying not to keep going as much. So I'm like, okay, I changed a few things and things are still working. It's like I would like to go a little faster and God just like keeps there's like a block, like I said, and it's like I've done so much work on myself that I'm like, okay, maybe that's the way that God is showing me that the door of what I had wanted to do is closed. Like you can't go back to it anymore type deal.
and and when that door is closed, we we talk a lot about, yeah, these were our plans, or this is what we thought we were going to do. And then we found out this door was closed, and we think pretty highly of ourselves that we figured out that that door was closed. But what we sometimes forget to do is that means there's another one that's been opened, or the window, or whatever analogy you want to use. And there's
Yeah.
something else out there for you. And it was interesting. My wife,
Hmm.
like I said, she was a guidance counselor, taught Spanish, and retired a couple years before I did. And then I saw how much fun she was having. So then that was kind of a part of the reason to join her. And she loves to travel. She loves to travel so much that while I was riding my bike and she would be sitting in these crummy old motels and hotels that I found along Route 66 or wherever, she started taking online classes and became a certified travel agent, focusing on cruising. And it is, I mean, she's just got she doesn't advertise, but she's just a very congenial person, and she does a really good job. And so that's what she does in life. And it was like, you know, she really wasn't able to travel all that much because we had the kids, and her mom as well lived a long life into her I think 96 when she passed away. And there was just a lot of things that, we kind of wondered, are we ever going to be able to do this? And so it was another door that was open for her. And she is kind of struggling a little bit. She goes, I'm actually getting more business than what I want. And so, that's something we have to pray about too, is that she doesn't get overwhelmed. It's not about, uh, trying to make money on the deal. She just likes to travel a lot. And we're leaving in a couple of weeks. We're going on to a Danube River cruise. And there's a little bit of side trip bicycling for me, but it's a training cruise. So she's going to be tied up with a lot of other travel agents and stuff. And then, good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, there's another cruise that she's got scheduled, 40 some people to go on in the Caribbean in January. Just September, she had another 46, 47 people on an Alaskan cruise. So I think God kind of said, you know what, instead of taking off and deserting your wife or dragging her all over the country on these bike trips, it's time for you, even though that's not my favorite thing to do, to accompany her on some of these cruises as well. That's not the worst thing that he could ask me to do, by the way.
Well,
But
yeah, there's a lot more worse things he could definitely ask you to be
yeah.
doing. Um, so I was wondering, like all the states that you've bicycled through, which one has been your favorite?
I get asked a lot of different questions, and so I hate to get too picky about the words, but favorite and most rewarding can be two different things. I love this last trip I did down to Florida through the Keys, and riding over the ocean with, on these old resurrected railroads that no longer, I mean, it's rails to trails, and you're there by yourself, basically riding over the ocean or the Caribbean. And that was really cool. I love that. Now the rest of Florida, not so much when you get down the highways with all the spring breakers and things. But probably the most rewarding, well, let me back up one. And I did Alaska last year with a group. It was my only real group ride. It was beautiful. But they took you past the boring parts and took you to all the scenic parts. And it was scenic, but I just didn't feel like I was interacting with people. I didn't feel like I got immersed in the culture as much. And I had people that were there, the group guides would, repair your bike if you had a problem, and all that, took care of all that kind of ancillary planning. Probably the most rewarding for me, if you get down to where you say, what was the most rewarding state, it would be the state of Washington, because that was where I was out there by myself. I wasn't sure I wanted to do this. God had to kind of push me off push me on the bike and say, this is your first trip, get going, throw me in the water. You got to learn how to swim. And although I had done many, many bike trips by myself before that, I was just intimidated by the Rocky Mountains and things. But as I rode up the first few miles, or the first day was along the coast, it was beautiful, the Pacific coast. And then I turned eastward, started crossing through these big, tall evergreen forests and climbing the mountain. There's Mount Rainier in the distance, and I could see Mount St. Helens. And then you go screaming down the other side of the mountain, and the next thing you know, you're in the deserts, and then you're crossing the Rocky Mountains. And my wife she was supposed to meet me, and I got a call from her. She says, "Hey, I got a nice voucher. If I can spend an extra night, I get another $800 voucher." And so it was one more day that I had to do without her. But it was just such a rewarding state. And so many people, as I struggled with going through there and some of the concerns that I had about doing it by myself, every day God put something in my place, took care of it. It was just incredible. And like I said, it's in the books. You can read about it, and there's just no way you could ever convince me that they were coincidences. And it was, and that reminds me, the last book I submitted for Kirkus Reviews for reviews. And if you're not familiar, Kirkus Reviews is a very, very well recognized kind of the gold standard of reviews. They do a lot for publishing companies. They are notoriously brutal on independent authors, which I am. And my publishing consultant warned me about that. I said, well, and she said, they're kind of expensive too. I said, well, I just really want to get the feedback. It came back. It was a very, very, very positive review. I was very, very pleased with it, except for the last sentence. They said, the author might confuse some people because what he describes as providential protection is just merely good luck and bad luck. And I started thinking about that. It was interesting that person did that, and I didn't want to get upset over it because I thought, you know what, I hope he is confused, or he or she or whoever, because you can't convince me that what God did for me in this trip. There was just so many things that I couldn't say those are coincidences. That they were things that were there that I just felt like my prayer time led me to make a decision that put me in that position where, if you want to call it good luck or good fortune, so be it. But to me, had I not prayed about it, and had I not made the decisions that I made, I would have been in some serious trouble or wouldn't have been able to continue the trip. So anyway, I hope that the individual was confused and that they reflect on some of those coincidences that they thought and realize that it wasn't just good luck and bad luck, that there is a providential protection that's available if you pray for it.
Well, yeah, there definitely is. That's why I'm at to the point in my life that I'm like, I've gone through more stuff than anyone in, because I'm only 39. So like I've gone through more stuff than anyone has gone through in one lifetime in my short years, because that's not a lot of years to be alive, 39. It just really isn't. So for me, I'm like, I've been through so much stuff. I'm like, no one can convince me that God's not real. Like, I know for a fact, without a shadow of a doubt, that he is real. And that's why I'm like, he's shut doors. And I'm like, why do I keep wanting to go back to these doors? Halloween's a great example because yesterday was the first time that we decided that we weren't going to do trick-or-treating anymore. Was it hard? Yes, because I could feel it was my flesh that was wrestling with it. Because it's like I heard it in my head. I'm like, this is the same. We've done this before. We've always done trick-or-treating. We've always done Halloween. And like that spiritual battle, like within my soul, it's like I could feel it was going on. Because my flesh is like, let's keep doing it. We got to go do this. This is what we've always done. And then my spiritual side's like, no, we already decided. We've already prayed on it. We're not doing it anymore. The kids, yeah, the kids wanted to go, but we're like, we're just not doing this anymore. We're done celebrating Satan's birthday because that's essentially what it is. And was it easy? Oh no,
Yeah.
it
And it's
wasn't.
funny because I heard so many people talk yesterday about Halloween. They said, well, enjoy your holiday. And I'm thinking, holiday, holiday came from originally holy day. And
That's what
that's
I
the last
thought.
thing that Halloween is. It is not a holy day. And,
Mm-mm.
I don't have to struggle with anymore. My youngest child is 28 and a half. So, he hasn't, we haven't taken him trick-or-treating in quite some time. And I struggled about trying to, do I want to hand out candy to everybody? But I came around to the point where I says, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be there. If you want to do it, you do it. I said, well, it'll keep me sidetracked from watching football games or whatever. But what I enjoy doing is meeting people and talking to them and staying connected with our neighbors, some of whom I only see once a year when they come around for candy. That's kind of one of the things that prompted me a few years ago when we were cleaning up around the house. I realized how many books we have. And so I installed one of these little free libraries out the front of our house. And we put some books out there, and it just is an opportunity to meet neighbors and interact with them. And So that's how I got around it. And unfortunately, I bought more candy than I should have. So now I'm struggling with my willpower.
No, no, it's all good. I'm just saying, like, that was one of those things that it's like you can
Yeah,
feel that battle that takes place,
it
you know.
is.
And so that's why it was bringing that part up too. And then also, I had wanted to know, like, when we're talking like the bicycling, is it an actual like real bicycle, like without the electricity, or is it one with electricity? Because that's what I got thinking. I'm like, wait a minute, they make electric ones too.
No.
Because I'm
Yeah.
thinking bicycle. You're talking about biking. I'm talking about the real bicycle, like what I grew up with, where not the banana. I miss the banana bikes, but
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about. I think.
Yeah.
So
No,
what
I
kind do you
understand. Yeah.
use?
Well, the first trips I did, I mean, it was on a 1966 Schwinn before anybody even thought about putting a motor on these things. And it was balloon tires. And I rode that, gosh, probably I was 16 years old before I finally ended up getting a 10 speed so I could keep up with my brother and my cousin a little bit better. And and then I bought I graduated from high school in 1974, bought a new bike to replace that old one as a graduation present to myself. And I took that bike for many, many years. And again, no electricity. Uh, every bike I've yet to buy a bicycle for myself that is an e-bike. Now, my wife has bad back, bad hips, and she wasn't able to ride regular bikes. So we finally ended up getting her a e-bike, and she's able to do some. I mean, she can do 30 miles a day once we get her trained up, and she's done a couple long trips with me. I want to say, a week, and on the trail. She doesn't do roads, but yeah, all my riding has been, through my power of my legs, I guess.
Well, no, that's good to know because I know like that's one of the things I've thought about because like with me, I've had my brain injury when I was 16, and that was with my bicycle. So for me, and then I've had back surgery and I've had one hip surgery. And so like for me, I'm thinking it's really difficult for me to even get on my bicycle because my husband has to help me on it because how I have to get on it now. I can't get on it the same way because my legs just simply don't move the way they need to anymore after the hip and the back surgery. So I'm restricted in that sense. So that's why I'm like, that's good to know though for like the bicycle differences that you're actually riding the real bicycle, legs and all, keeping the hips strong, keeping the legs strong.
Yeah.
And at 70, like that's an or you said almost 70.
Almost 7. Next year we'll hit that.
Yeah, but that's
The other
still an
thing is,
accomplishment for your age
and,
though. That's amazing. That's what
and
I want. I want to still be moving at that age is what I'm getting at.
well, the other part of it is, and I thought
Yeah.
about this. I said, as I get older, you want to be proactive. You want to change before you have to. You don't want to
Yes.
find out that I'm not able to cognitively or physically do these kind of things anymore, and then have a problem, a major accident or something. Um, and so I've tried to be sensitive to, am I able to do these things? And I've certainly found out running, marathoning. Um, I'm struggling a little bit with that. Uh, Ironically, when
Yeah.
I took some time off this year was getting ready my book launch. The books arrived. They were on the porch. We got home, uh, July, summer thunderstorm hit, and I see the books on the porch. So I race up there. I ignore the two-man lift, heavy boxes, and by the time I got done, I had thrown my back out. And I just finished up physical therapy on it a couple of weeks ago, and just now getting back into starting getting my mileage back up a little bit. But along with that, it just says, what you can't you may not do this forever. Um, and so the other thing that I am encouraged by, I see people on tricycles now, or even quads, where there's these low recumbent bikes where they can sit back and do
Yeah.
that. And when I talked to them, they said, "Yeah, well, I just don't have the balance anymore. So I ride on trails and I use these things, and it still allows me to get exercise and get out and do it." So it's encouraging to think that, yeah, there's some new technology out there that will enable you to maybe do a little bit longer than what you used to do. And it may be something that you want to take a look at too, because it's much easier. You just sit down on these things and you just kind of pedal away, and it's not as, you don't have to worry about balancing yourself as much.
Yeah, and that's the nice part about it. That's why I had to ask about that too, because I'm like, I love riding bicycle, it's just, it is more challenging afterwards. That's why I haven't done it. And it's not fun because I'm like, I liked riding my bicycle. And like all the kids, it's like I got enough kids now. It's like we got a whole little.
You've got your own Peloton there.
Yes, yes. So that's why I'm like, it's one of those good things. So before we close our show, what's the best way for our audience to get in contact with you?
Well, the best way, you could go on my website, and it's very easy. It's joetbikes.com. And so that's the easiest way. And then there'll be some links to some other stuff that I have going on, some of the charitable organizations that you can donate to. And there's also a way that you can contact me directly on that. So that's probably is good. Go to my website. You can also go on Amazon, and you can look me up as an author, Joe Tarantino. There's a couple Joe Tarantinos out there. So you want the one that does got the book here, Pale Pink Roads. And you can, that's a pretty easy thing to remember too, Pale Pink Roads. And click on that book on Amazon, and that'll connect you with my author page. And you can follow me there. Some of the other things are a little trickier, but I have links to all my other social media on my website. Joe Tarantino is on Facebook, and I forget what number I am, but all those links are on my website on the first page there. So that's the easiest way, joetbikes.com.
Awesome. I've appreciated our conversation so much, and I'm sure audience has as well. So I just want to remind everybody to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Healing for the Soul podcast, and keep coming back for more episodes. And I want to thank everyone for their time and their energy while listening to today's episode of Healing for the Soul podcast.